Mother Nature offers our palate a new selection of food and flavors to savor. Here in the Simply Luxurious Kitchen, discover simple ways to dance effortlessly with each season and enjoy stepping into your kitchen, knowing no matter what you find at the market. Well-stocked epicerie, you can make a delicious meal in the middle of the work week or to share with family and friends on a weekend. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Simply Luxurious Kitchen. Welcome to my kitchen. Today, on our first episode, what I'd like to show you is one of my favorite appetizers. And it really only involves 5 ingredients. So simple and the perfect little bite of summer, whether for a grand soiree or simply a snack for yourself in mid-afternoon and you're trying to relax, because this is simple, will not take up that much time. So what are we making? We're making Caprese Bruschetta, but we're going to break it down because we're going to make Caprese, which is simply an Italian salad of 3 ingredients: tomato, basil, and mozzarella. And we're also going to make just bruschetta, which is simply Italian toasted bread with garlic and tomato. Now, here's our bread that we're going to toast, here's our garlic, and then our tomato. So we're going to make basically 3 simple recipes: Caprese, bruschetta, and Caprese bruschetta. And hopefully you'll see what speaks to you, because if you don't want a lot of bread, there's a way to get around that and still have all that flavor. But if you do want that cheese and that bread, I've got that taken care of for you as well. So let's get started. All right. So we're going to make the bruschetta, Caprese bruschetta first, and get that in the oven. So we want to line a baking sheet. We can do a small one, a half-size baking sheet here, or a full. It's up to you. And we're going to make sure we cut the bread on a bias. So the one thing with the bread cutting is simply by cutting on a bias, you're giving yourself obviously more bread. But I like to cut them fairly thin, because you want to have a similar ratio of cheese with bread with tomato. So here we go. Just a few more slices. Very simple. Get that crustiness on the outside. Pick that bread up from your local baker, and then that chewy loveliness on the inside of baguette. So we're going to put 4 slices here. All right. The oven is at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And before we put our mozzarella on there, I'm going to drizzle with a little olive oil. Okay. Olive oil goes on. Now what we're going to do, move some of these over. Just going to slice our mozzarella. Okay. All right. Now, since we're just slicing something very easy to slice, I want to talk really quickly about knife cutting, because there is really, some people like to stick to really hard and fast rules, and there are some rules you should definitely stick to with regards to how you hold your ingredient, but there really isn't a need for you to have a chef knife. Now, this is considered a chef knife. It's 23 inches long, but I also have a shorter knife that I've used for years, and I love it. It fit my style so much better. The one thing you want to make sure you do have is the drop right here is long enough so that your knuckles are not dragging on the board. Now, the other secret that I learned recently is where and how you stand. So if I'm standing directly onto my island or my cutting board, that would be considered 90-degree angle. So I'm going this way, the countertop's going this way. It's recommended, so I'm right-handed, to stand at a 45-degree angle, because you're not going to slice like this. You're slicing at an angle. And then keep the front end of the knife down, curl your fingers, grab onto whatever you're slicing, so that if it does hit you, it's only going to hit your knuckle, okay? And you just slice. Now, of course, I'm going to go fairly slow because it's cheese and I want to be gentle with it. But you want as many slices as you have bread. And if you have big slices of bread, you want a few more little bits and pieces to put on. Right, Oscar? Oscar's right down here watching me do this, aren't ya? All right, so let's get those on. So I need a little bit bigger slices of cheese because my slices of bread are a little bit bigger. But it really, again, I break them up a little bit here, put them on, and you have your bread ready to go in the oven. So we're going to simply put this in the oven. Before I do that, I'm going to start heating this pan up to about medium heat, and I'll explain to you why in a second. Alright, so we're going to put this in the oven at 400 degrees for just 4 minutes, just to start getting the bread toasted, and then we'll put it on broil for 2 more minutes. 4? Okay. Now, while that is, put that back in its place, while that is toasting and that's warming up, let's get the basil ready. Alright? So you want to get your basil from either your garden, obviously, if you have it, or the market, as fresh as possible, and pick off all those leaves. You don't want the stem, okay? With parsley, for example, you can keep the stem, but for basil, you don't want the stem. So pick up all those lovely little leaves. Oh, I love that smell. Love that smell. You could probably just have them for a bouquet for a while in the house, too, if you want to have that fragrance in your kitchen. Okay, get all the little leaves off here. That over the garbage. Alright, now you're going to roll up those leaves all together and you're going to julienne them. Okay, same 45-degree angle. My end is on the board. My knuckles, notice my fingers are wrapped around the handle. Do not put your finger like this. Okay, what's grounding you is keeping the end of your knife down. So here we go. Now, having been someone who has cut her finger, I have been wanting to learn how to cook or use a knife well. So that's all you really have to do. And sometimes if you see one, you have to cut up again. All right, so that's julienne and ready. While that's cooking and that's waiting, we're going to cut some more tomatoes up. Because our bruschetta, which we're going to toast on top of the oven, needs tomatoes. So here we go. We're going to get the core out of that tomato. Okay. And we're just going to slice and then dice this one. And you can use a serrated knife for tomatoes. I like using serrated knives as well. It really just depends on your choice. Okay. And make sure your knife's sharp. That's basically, if your knife is sharp, you're not going to have any problems at all, as long as you keep your fingers out of the way. So I'll slice at the end of this really quickly before I slice the rest of it up. Okay. All those juices, oh, it's going to be so good. So here we go. And slice through these. Again, oops, got to stand 45. All right, slip them around. Right, one time. You really want to cut them in dice slices that are a little bit smaller than bite size, so that you can get 1 or 2 little chunks of tomato in there when you're eating them. Now, one thing we can do with the tomatoes is use a scooper. And so I love a pastry, basically a pastry helper. But what I like to do is it helps me get rid of some of those juices. So, let's see if this is hot. I think so. Now, I need to cut some garlic. Okay? This one's fun. So cutting garlic, the easiest way to get that skin off. Make sure it's sitting on the side that sits flat on the board. Your knife is going to be flat, and you're just going to punch it with your heel of your hand. That's all. and the skin just pops off. Look at that, like magic. It just pops off so easily. And you're gonna slice just one clove for this pan for the bruschetta, because remember bruschetta is toasted bread with garlic and tomatoes. Again, you can always mix that up, but that's just the basic definition of it. Okay, my 4 minutes are up on my bread, and my garlic is sliced. Perfect timing. All right, so let's check on our Caprese Bruschetta. Woo! Yep. So now what we're going to do is we're going to increase the heat to broil, so it just gets the top of the bread and really makes that cheese ooey and gooey and bubbly. You're basically waiting for it to turn bubbly, and here we go. Okay, it's on broil. Time it. We'll do 2 minutes on that. Now let's get the bruschetta going. So olive oil in the pan. Do not be slight with the olive oil. You want this pan basically having a light layer of olive oil all the way across, because we want to toast the bread. Now, I came across this idea for this recipe when I had didn't have an oven. I was at a place, a vacation rental, and I didn't have an oven. And I also want to put a little bit on the bread before I put it down. It's going to sound silly, but you cannot have enough. There we go. Whew. And you'll see why in a little bit here. It'll just look so beautiful. Okay. Let's do a few more. It's not going to get soaked if you just put a light layer. So those are going to go. All right. But I didn't have an oven. And I had a fantastic baguette. I was in France. And I had fresh tomatoes from the market. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to do this? Because I really would like to have that combination of bruschetta and a little bit of tomatoes and maybe some mozzarella too, make it a combo. And so I toasted them on the oven instead. So easy to do. You're gonna do about three minutes on each side. So let's wait for them to do that. All right. So our bruschetta in the oven is done. Ooh, look at that. Nice and bubbly and a little brown on the edges. That's exactly what we want. Now we're going to dress that. And what I like to do in the order is I like to put the basil on first while the cheese is warm, so that the basil sticks to it, and yeah, it sticks to it and stays in place. So you get the whole bite of the basil, the tomato, and the mozzarella. All right, go. As much or as little as you want. Then, as much or as little as you want of tomatoes. It's right on top. Okay, do this right on the baking sheet. Just get your hands in there. Woo -hoo. Again, these are going to be bites. Right, it's looking good. So excited. Check on our bread. Yes! Oh, the bread's looking so good. Just gonna flip those over. Look at that. Look at that. Nice and brown. Oh, you know what I almost forgot to do? All over on the other side too. Just a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Okay, flip it over. Oh my gosh, those look great. Oh, yummy. Okay. So again, make sure they're all in that oil that's evenly distributed around the pan. I just love the scent of it, the olive oil, and it's going to smell really good here in a second. I'll explain why. All right. So that's ready to go on one side. About 2-3 more minutes there. Take that over and dress it. Give these a check. Woo! Yummy. So now what I'm going to do very quickly, get a towel, get some of the sogginess off of them. All right, so now the bread is out. What we're gonna do is add garlic. Just for a few minutes, or excuse me, not even a minute, 30 seconds to a minute. Just a little bit until you start smelling the fragrance of the garlic. Then, immediately after that, you put the piece of the resistance of the tomatoes and unify this whole thing. All right, and you can use any kind of tomato you like. I love heirloom tomatoes. You just want it fresh. That's the key. Okay. Those, oof, you can smell it in here. Now I'm going to put the tomatoes in, and only for about 2 minutes. Woo! Look at that. Because you don't want them to get soggy. Okay? Just in just a low of medium heat. Medium heat. No higher than that. I would go a little bit lower than that. Keep the heat at those tomatoes. Add a little bit of that basil. And you're basically done. You just have to put it on top of the bread. I'm going to turn that off. Let the residual heat go. All right, guys. Looking so good. Yum. Okay. Now, let's get our bread toasted. Okay. 3 down. Oh, still happy. Still very, very happy in that. It's sizzling. So just layer right on top of those slices of bruschetta. Whoop! Come back to me. Again, I can't describe the flavor of this. I've been making this recipe, I think, for 12 years. And I always finesse it a little bit more. I always think, okay, how can I make this more enjoyable to eat? Because initially, I started off, I'm just going to pick these up real quick. Whoop! Alright, we're almost done, but not quite yet. So what we have is bruschetta with the toasted bread, and then you have the the garlic and the tomatoes. But then you want to top them with some balsamic vinegar. Now, my favorite balsamic vinegar is a little bit thicker than a lot of the different brands in stores. I buy mine local, and you can always make whatever balsamic vinegar you have a little thicker, just simply by putting it in a saucepan and reducing it. And when it becomes reduced, it becomes thicker. You don't want it like syrup, but you could. And I just want you to look at how lovely it looks, but also how it's just a little dribble. Okay. Some wine with this, and because I had to my camera ran out, I had to restart the video, but I wanted to say cheers and santé actually, because having a little bit of rosé in the middle of the summer with a little bit of mozzarella, tomato, and basil on toasted bread, you just can't beat it. It is a simple, delicious appetizer. May you enjoy your day, enjoy your food, and enjoy stepping into your kitchen. Bonne journée.